What's going on, everyone? It looks like we're starting Christmas week off in the red. The Bitcoin miners across the board are red. MicroStrategy's down, Bitcoin's down. We're going to look at Bitcoin and MicroStrategy on the chart. We also have a bearish Bearish Schiff. Always loves to appear on these red days like this. And before he can say, I told you so, I'm going to say, I told you so. That Bearish Schiff, when we enter the next bear market, he's going to call out how he's so right about Bitcoin and it's just a scam and yada yada yada. When in reality, all the guy needs to do is learn to follow the Bitcoin cycles. I find it insane that people like this guy can't follow one of the easiest things for Bitcoin, the 4-year cycle. But we did have some recent MicroStrategy news, likely their last buy this year. MicroStrategy bought more Bitcoin, and Bearish Schiff has this to say about it. It seems like you're running out of firepower to keep propping up Bitcoin, as if MicroStrategy is the one propping it up. Plus, not only is this your smallest buy, but the first time your average purchase price has been above the market price on the Monday you disclosed the buy. Oh no, Bitcoin dipped a little bit after MicroStrategy bought it. What will he ever do? Hint, he will buy more. And while at some point I do agree with Schiff that things will come crashing down, but all you have to do is follow the cycle. MicroStrategy, Bitcoin, the Bitcoin miners, they're not done yet. If Bearish Schiff understood the 4-year cycle, he would know that as well. And this isn't necessarily a recommendation to hold MicroStrategy into 2026, into 2027, or hold Bitcoin, or hold the Bitcoin miners for that matter, into that time. This is a recommendation to remember to follow Bitcoin's 4-year cycle. Because of Bitcoin's halving cycle, Bitcoin will remain cyclical in nature. There will be boom periods, there will be bust periods. There will be bear markets, there will be bull markets. And they will be tied around the Bitcoin halving, with a run-up before the halving and after the halving as supply gets diminished. And then at some point, the sellers outnumber the buyers, technicals look ugly, and we repeat the process. At some point, MicroStrategy's strategy won't positively affect their share price as much. It won't bring the hype and momentum that it has before. But I don't think that time has passed us yet. And I do think future announcements of buying Bitcoin, utilizing convertible notes to acquire more Bitcoin, this is what they want to be doing at this time in the cycle. Do they want to necessarily be doing it in late 2025? I don't think so, but will they? Probably. MicroStrategy's goal is very long term. Their goal is accumulation of Bitcoin. I don't think they care as much about the Bitcoin cycle. They are just going to buy and buy and buy and hold and hold and hold. It might help them time their buys a little better, but in reality, you know, there are a lot of uncertainties with Bitcoin. If you stick to a DCA approach, buying when you're able to, on the long term you will succeed. Now let's look at MicroStrategy on the chart. We are getting awful close to a gap fill. There is a gap down here in the high 200s, seeming a lot more likely that we may fill it than, you know, a couple months ago when we were up here in the high 300s or low 400s, for example. Now it is seeming like a much more viable possibility. Funny enough, on Friday MicroStrategy tested its 50 MA. It is above that point now. It did get a nice clear bounce off the 50 MA, which is a fantastic sign. We see Bitcoin do this a lot in past cycles as well. One thing I'm going to be watching that might start playing out is this descending resistance. If we can't break above this, I do think we might get a reaction and break back down, fill this gap. If we do break above this, I do think we'll see a positive reaction. This might be, on the short term, a new trend for MicroStrategy. It might find this descending resistance as a resistance. You might want to play the breakout of it. The market might react to it. One thing we are seeing is a divergence on the monthly. The market might not care about this. This might be way too far in distance, time-wise, you know, but we do have two tops on the RSI, two equal tops, and the top here was much higher than the top here. Like I said, you know, the time frame might be so far away that this is just, no one's going to pay attention to this. But it is a RSI divergence. And MicroStrategy may retrace some of its gains before going higher, but I do not think MicroStrategy has topped out this cycle. I don't think the Bitcoin miners have topped out this cycle. I don't think Coinbase has topped out this cycle. I don't think Bitcoin has topped out this cycle. And that goes for many of the alts too. Will some of these alts make it to their previous cycle highs? I hold the unpopular opinion that some won't. Some people look at last cycle and say, oh, these alts have so much upside. Just because they're at a certain price in a previous cycle doesn't mean they're going to get there. It's kind of like looking at a stock that has reverse split after reverse split after reverse split, and you look at its, you know, 10-year history, and the stock used to be an $80, $90 stock that's now only 25 cents. You think that there's so much upside, but the reality is that it's just a horrible company that dilutes, that reverse splits after reverse splits. Of course, alts aren't horrible companies necessarily, and they're not at all the same as a company in the stock market. But, you know, the past prices doesn't dictate future prices at all, is my point that I'm trying to make. But I do believe the alts are going much higher. I do believe MicroStrategy, Bitcoin miners are going much higher. And all you have to do is follow the cycle. We did have some liquidations on Bitcoin's drop here. We had a combined 271 million in crypto positions liquidated. And Bitcoin, from a chart standpoint, it is back at its 50 MA that it did previously test. This is going to be an important level to hold up. If we break this, we're also breaking our ascending channel. This is a pretty clear direction we've been in. If we do break this, that is not a good sign. I personally am of the belief that this will get picked up, but I do see Bitcoin having a decent correction at some point in probably mid 2025 before we end the year strong, as Bitcoin has done, and altcoins and everything else in past cycles. Keep an eye on the divergences. We do have some divergences popping up on the 1 hour. We are getting close to seeing them on the 4 hour if price supports it. But looking at the 1 hour, you'll see that the RSI is basing out. The RSI is hitting a bottom and keeps bouncing off of a floor. It is not going lower, at least right now. While the price is in fact going lower, this is an RSI divergence. Although it is a weak bullish RSI divergence, we have equal lows but lower lows. It is still an RSI divergence, and we might start seeing it on larger time frames, which would mean more significance. But yeah, I mean, Bitcoin has only had a 13% correction from its top. These corrections are normal, even more so, even 20% corrections. We will likely see corrections like this, maybe even more, over throughout our bull run until it finishes. Just because it's down 13% doesn't mean the bull market is over. And Bitcoin has seen many corrections like this along the way throughout past cycles. And like I said, even much more than a 13% drop. This as a drop is child's play. And if this is fearing you out, maybe crypto isn't for you. Bitcoin on the weekly is now low. Bitcoin on the weekly is now low. Oh my God. Bitcoin on the weekly is now no longer overbought. And in my opinion, we have not topped out. The RSI is nowhere near previous tops. I do think the RSI on the weekly needs to go much higher than 78 for it to be a clear sign that we're topping out. There are also many indicators I'm watching, and I'll pull them up for you guys. Make sure you take a screenshot or write these down. You can see that I added more to this list, and I made a misspelling too. These are all of the things we want to be watching for signs of topping out. When most of these indicators are pointing out that the top is in, that is when we want to be exiting. That is when we want to be selling the Bitcoin miners. That is when we want to be exiting the Bitcoin plays. Like I've said, I'll always hold a little Bitcoin, but I don't plan on holding the alts. I don't plan on holding the Bitcoin miners cycle to cycle. As long as we keep an eye on these indicators, I think we'll fare all right. Now, I do want to remind you guys that we are in a global liquidity expansion phase until early 2026. And what is the most tied to global liquidity? Well, that is no other than Bitcoin. Bitcoin has an 83.2% correlation with global M2. This means that when money is printed and when money comes into the world, Bitcoin benefits from it 83% of the time. M2 money is a measure of the money supply that includes cash, checking deposits, easily convertible near money. It encompasses M1 money, physical currency, savings accounts, short-term deposits. It's also used as an indicator of the money available in the economy, influencing inflation, interest rates, overall economic activity. And while this is a rough start to the week, these are the times you want to take advantage. Knowing that we're still in an overall bull market, knowing that we are still likely to go up and to the right for about another year. There will be pullbacks along the way. In my opinion, you want to embrace them. You also don't want to chase too late into 2025, in my opinion, but that's just my opinion. You do what you want to do. It's up to you. But my plan is to trim heavily in late 2025. My plan is not to talk about buying Bitcoin, buying the Bitcoin miners, buying Bitcoin when it's 150,000, 200,000 potentially. That is when we want to be exiting. That is when our family members that never talk about Bitcoin, when they're talking about it, that's when we should probably be a little cautious. I don't think we're there yet, but we are slowly getting there. But what do you guys think? What do you think about today? Are you taking advantage? Are you holding tight, waiting for more green days? I do think MicroStrategy would be a great dip buy if we can get that gap fill. But admittedly, at this point, it's still probably a solid DCA with plans of exiting in 6 months to a year. Same with the Bitcoin miners, same with the alts. I think they're a good DCA/dip buy until we get into mid to late 2025. That's when you want to really be cautious. That is when you don't want to be buying necessarily. Things could always play out differently, but that's where I see things going. Thanks as always for watching, guys, and have a good rest of your day.